Oh, I don't have to write any. Oh, great. Sure, give me the script. Gone, you know. But he lets me. Oh, Jimmy, comic produces very good about. Freddie Prinze was making $25,000 a week. He had just performed for the president. His catchphrase, looking good, was everywhere. But on January 28, 1977, he started calling everyone his mother, his ex-wife, his friends. Everyone saw the warning signs, but nobody could stop what was coming. At just 22 years old, the star of Chico and the Man was done pretending. What happened next shocked Hollywood forever. Edward Carl Prutzel carried a secret that shaped his family forever. In 1934, at 19, he escaped Nazi Germany as a young Jewish and Lutheran man. America gave him a new life, but tragedy followed. During his first marriage, his 5-year-old daughter, Alice, drowned in their swimming pool. Edward was painting the house and wasn't watching. Finding her lifeless body crushed him. From that moment, he never forgave himself. Alcohol became his escape. His drinking destroyed his first marriage and left him empty. Even after marrying Maria Granella, he stayed haunted by the past. The fear of losing another child kept him distant. That dark secret would follow the family forever. Maria Granella loved Edward despite his scars. Born in Puerto Rico, she came to New York to work. In a factory, she hoped her love could mend him. On June 22, 1954, she gave birth to Frederick Carl Prutzel at St. Clair's Hospital. The world would come to know him as Freddie Prinze. Maria fought hard to give him a better life. Even as Edward stayed trapped in guilt and drinking, she held the family together. Maria gave Freddie strength, but trauma had already settled deep in the house. Freddie was born into violence. The streets of Washington Heights in the 1960s were rough. Crime was everywhere. Maria was robbed 3 times in their own apartment building. Freddie was scared for his mother. After school, he rushed home to protect her. It was dangerous just walking those streets. Gangs ruled most blocks. To survive, Freddie had to join one. It was not a choice, it was a way to stay alive. Many kids around him ended up in jail. Freddie promised himself he'd do better. Comedy became his escape. His mother wanted him to grow strong, so she put him in ballet class. Freddie was a chubby, asthmatic boy with glasses. Ballet was an odd choice for a boy back then, but Maria wanted him to control his weight and feel proud. At the same time, she gave him a strict mix of cultures. On weekdays, he went to a Lutheran school. On Sundays, he attended Catholic Mass. It was confusing. It was hard to fit in, but it shaped him. He learned to adapt. It made him tough. Freddie also learned that humor could save him. Kids teased him for his weight and asthma. Instead of fighting back, he made them laugh. He mimicked teachers. He told jokes in the boys' bathroom. Soon, kids skipped class just to see him do his routines. Even at the prestigious Federal H. LaGuardia High School, he kept making people laugh. Comedy became his armor and his ticket out. Life in Washington Heights was tough. By the mid-1970s, gangs like the Savage Skulls and Kofon Kings ran the streets. Freddie hung around dangerous people. Humor was his way to stay safe. Even then, he knew most funny kids in his neighborhood ended up in prison. Freddie once said, growing up fast was not a choice, it was what his world demanded. Freddie decided to change his life. He auditioned for LaGuardia High School of Music and Art and Performing Arts without telling his parents. It was a big risk, but he did it. Getting accepted gave him hope. At school, he practiced ballet and comedy. It was there that he found his voice and his confidence. For the first time, he felt like he belonged. But outside of school, survival was tough. Freddie dealt small amounts of drugs near 157th Street and Broadway. The drug trade was part of daily life. Selling gave him money and respect. It also gave him a sharp view of how hard people struggled. This experience made him wiser and gave him stories to tell. Freddie was also a hidden musical talent. Even as a teenager, he played the drums, guitar, and piano. Tony Orlando and Don heard him sing and invited him to work on the album To Be With You. Music and comedy came together in Freddie. On stage, his timing was perfect. Offstage, his heart was full of rhythm. He decided to leave school before his senior year. Many thought it was crazy, but Freddie knew comedy was his future. Going by the Hungaran, he performed at the Improv and clubs all over New York. By the time he was 19, people were already saying his name. Walking away from school was a gamble, but it was one that paid off. It gave him the chance to chase his dreams, and those dreams would take him much further than anyone thought possible. After leaving the High School of Performing Arts, he headed straight into Manhattan's comedy clubs. Night after night, he took the stage at places like the Improv and Catch a Rising Star. The air was always buzzing with energy. Big names like Robin Williams, Jay Leno, and David Brenner were there too. But Prinze stood out fast. He had a style nobody had seen before. He called himself Hungaran, blending Puerto Rican and German-Hungarian roots into his jokes. Audiences loved his honesty. He was funny without trying too hard. Sometimes he'd jump on stage with nothing prepared. That's when he was at his best. He could make people laugh by telling stories about his family, his culture, or anything that came to mind. Every set was different. Every night felt electric. By 1973, everyone was already whispering his name. As his star rose, Prince kept one hero close to his heart, Lenny Bruce. Bruce was fearless. He tackled subjects most comedians wouldn't dare touch. Prince admired that. He studied Bruce's style, learning to embrace raw, personal humor, but the connection ran deeper than comedy. Prince even dated Bruce's daughter, Kitty. The romance was brief and ended badly. The breakup crushed him. Some say he thought about suicide, shaken by the same demons that had followed Bruce. Prince felt the weight of fame pressing down. Drugs, depression, and isolation hovered around him, just like they had for Bruce. It was as if their stories were forever linked. Even after their paths crossed only briefly, Bruce's shadow stayed with Prince, shaping him as an artist and as a man. Bud Friedman, the founder of the Improv, saw all of this up close. Friedman was one of the first to believe in Prince. He thought he was a natural, but he also knew that too much too soon could destroy someone. Friedman had watched other comedians burn out before. Late nights, endless pressure, and a constant need to prove yourself could crush anyone, so he took Prince aside and warned him, "Stay grounded. Remember who you are. Get help if you need it." It was good advice, but when you're 20 and on the rise, good advice is easy to forget. Friedman hoped Prince would listen. Deep down, he feared for him, knowing that fame is never simple, even when it looks easy. That fame exploded on television. In 1973, Prince appeared on Jack Parr's show. It was a small but exciting taste of national attention. Charlton Heston, who was also a guest that night, noticed Prince right away. Heston liked his timing. The audience liked his charm. But the big break came a few months later, on December 6, 1973. Prince walked onto The Tonight Show set at just 19 years old. He delivered his set with his usual humor about his background and family life. Johnny Carson was so impressed that he invited him to sit down for an interview. That was a rare honor, especially for someone that young. On December 6, 1973, a 19-year-old comedian named Freddie Prinze walked onto the stage of The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson. No one in the audience really knew him yet, but by the end of his set, everything had changed. Prince was funny in a way that felt fresh and real. The crowd laughed hard, and Johnny Carson himself was clearly impressed. It wasn't just an ordinary stand-up spot. Carson did something he rarely ever did for new comedians. He invited Prince over to the couch for a sit-down chat. That simple gesture told millions of people watching that Prince was someone special. Overnight, this teenager had gone from playing small clubs to becoming a household name. Carson rarely gave such strong approval to a newcomer. He was famous for having high standards, and making him laugh was tough enough. Prince didn't just make him laugh, he earned Carson's full attention. Soon after that December 1973 appearance, Prince was invited back on the show several times. Carson even let him guest host the program, which was unheard of for someone so new. That kind of opportunity was usually reserved for established stars like Joan Rivers or Bob Newhart, but Carson believed in Prince. It gave the young comic a chance to grow in front of millions of viewers, and it showed everyone in Hollywood that Prince was going to be a star. Within 72 hours of that first Tonight Show performance, NBC was already calling. They rushed to sign him before anyone else could. Network executives could see that Prince connected with everyone, whether they were mainstream audiences or people who rarely saw someone like him on television. They offered him everything they could, including specials and even his own series. This wasn't just a deal. It was the kind of phone call that could make someone a millionaire overnight. Prince was suddenly flooded with offers. Everyone wanted a piece of him. The buzz was impossible to ignore. Magazines put him on their covers. Studios were knocking on his door. Fans followed him everywhere. Prince was only 19, and it was moving too fast. Even Entertainment Weekly would later say that this was a double-edged sword, too much too soon. For someone so young. Prince himself admitted that fame was hard to handle. Drugs and the pressure of the spotlight began to take their toll. People in Hollywood were worried. They admired his talent. But they could also see that the weight of success was crushing him. When Chico and the Man premiered on September 13, 1974, at 8:30 p.m. on NBC, it grabbed everyone's attention. Right away, it shot to the top of the Nielsen ratings and stayed one of the most-watched shows all season. 19-year-old Freddie Prinze played Chico Rodriguez. He had only recently appeared on The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson, and now he was the star of his own series. The story was simple but powerful. Chico was a bright, hopeful young Chicano, working in a rundown garage owned by a grumpy old Anglo named Ed Brown, played by Jack Albertson. That mix of youth and wisdom, comedy and heart, was exactly what America loved. Within weeks, the show was a sensation. Prince's catchphrase, "looking good," was everywhere. He went from being almost unknown to becoming a superstar. Magazines, talk shows, comedy albums, his face was everywhere. and it was rare for a brand new sitcom to jump straight to #1 in the ratings. It was even more surprising given Prince's youth and lack of television experience. His rise happened so fast that people could hardly believe it. The show stayed popular for 2 more seasons, but even as millions laughed, trouble was already stirring in Prince's personal life. The real magic came from Prince and Jack Albertson. Albertson was already a respected actor with an Emmy for The Sunshine Boys. On screen, he played Edie as a stubborn old garage owner who didn't trust anyone, especially Chico. Prince played Chico as energetic and full of dreams. Together, they created a perfect balance of humor and honesty. They argued, they learned from each other, and slowly became like family. The show's creator, James Comack, picked Prince after watching him read with Albertson. It was obvious they had real chemistry. That chemistry wasn't just on screen, off screen, the two actors were close. This real friendship made the serious themes in the show feel more real. Chico and the man dealt with racism, poverty, and the gap between generations. But it did so with humor and warmth. That balance kept people coming back every week. Audiences weren't just watching two characters, they were watching a heartfelt bond grow right in front of them, and the show mattered for more than laughs. Prince was making history. He was the first actor of Puerto Rican descent to lead a primetime show on a major network. The series was also the first American television comedy set in a Mexican-American neighborhood with a mostly Latino cast. That was something new for Hollywood. Prince himself was German and Puerto Rican, playing a character who was Mexican on his father's side and Puerto Rican on his mother's. That detail connected to his own life and gave him a special sense of authenticity. Although some Chicano groups questioned the casting, most people embraced Prince. They loved him for his talent, humor, and easy charm. And in playing Chico, he showed other Latino actors that they could succeed, too.